All right, everyone, thank you for coming, for braving the incredibly horrible weather that we have outside. I'm sure it's claimed many of people as they flock to the water and beaches and forests and streams. When it gets sunny, it goes nuts. So, I know, it just got trapped. Self-defense, they eat all ice cream. It's crazy. So thank you for showing up. Tonight we have a special guest of Evan Lovely, who I have tapped to talk about Grunt. If you're not familiar with Grunt yet, it will blow your mind because it pretty much takes really complex, annoying, complicated, tedious things that we've been doing as front-end developers for the longest time and basically turns it into one command on the keyboard that just does everything for you. It's kind of ridiculous. I currently have a Grunt command that will take my current branch, compile all the assets, update the version in package.json and barrow.json, commit those into that branch because it needs to be there, checks out a new branch, commits those compiled assets, creates a tag, pushes the tag up, comes back, deletes the old branch it had so that that compiled assets isn't in any commit, and then deletes that branch and pushes all that up. So with one command, I can basically compile and create a new tag and push that new tag out for a release. That's a bunch of manual steps, and Grunt makes it just a piece of cake. And that's probably the tip of the iceberg for what Evan's going to show you. So I'm going to let him run for it. We're going to record most of it, and then at the end, I think we're going to do some questions. He's got some stuff that probably doesn't want to get all the way out into the universe. So we'll stop at that point, and I'm going to get called away for more door duty. But take it away. Oh, I want to continue to make sure that we say the pizza here is provided not by benevolent gods of pizza, though that would be nice if they would start doing that. Would be great. No, Treehouse is our current sponsor. If you're not familiar with Treehouse, they are, from one, they're a Portland company. They moved out here a couple years ago, so awesome to have a local sponsor helping us out. They do online training. So if you're here and you're curious about front-end web development, you know a lot more. They can't wait for next month when we have another awesome event with an awesome speaker. We'll get to that in a second. You can go on there and you can learn about just about everything tech, whether it's front-end development, back-end development, Ruby development, Java development. If you want to get into Android, iOS apps, Swift, I mean, you name it, they've got courses on it all over the place. So if you haven't tried that out, check it out. It's an awesome service from a bunch of local people that do amazing stuff. So we definitely appreciate them providing free pizza over and over again. They've been sponsored for almost like a year and a half, for quite a while. Yeah, about a year, yeah, since like last February or so. So really appreciate them as they continue to support us doing these cool things. So now I will say, Evan, take it away.
Oh, wow, look at that. First off, thanks everybody for making it. I appreciate it. So it's, okay, so, Micah just was like, oh, well, it, Grunt, ran and it it did all my dishes and it folded my laundry and it ran errands and, the thing is like, at first you're like, whoa, like, that's a lot of cool stuff, but, I want to start way earlier than that
because
that's not how you start out. So let's see here. I kind of want to see where everybody's at right now. So like, who is a front-end developer who's responsible for writing Sass or less and compiling it to CSS? Okay, cool. All right. Do we have people who write JavaScript here? All right. All right. Now, do we have any people who write in back-end languages and never touch SCSS or JavaScript? Okay. Awesome. All right. It's like I do everything. I'm the unicorn. I see you, Mikey. So like, all right. So how can we get from get past Compass Watch and get up to something just a little bit more? So that like, I'm kind of a big shell script person, and I think that you can do like a ton of stuff with Bash. And one of the first things I was able to get in with doing Grunt was basically have Grunt run my shell commands. Because like all those little like annoying flags and making sure the command's right, you can be able to package that up and just say, all right, do that thing and do it again. So I want to go ahead and start with that. And there's basically like there's a task like think about like running compass compile, or maybe it's bundle exec compass compile. And you know, there's like a watch. So if this changes, then do that. And these are kind of some of the concepts that I want us to be able to go through today. So I mean, it seems you'll have to put aside, like I'm sure at one point you'll think, well, Compass Watch does that. But we're going to kind of we'll build it up, and trust me that the Compass Watch hits its ceiling way earlier than Grunt Watch can. So there's this basic concept of like, watch this stuff, then run that, that we're going to get into a little bit more. So, you know, first and foremost though, so Grunt is really Node.js, and Node.js is awesome because, you know, JavaScript, you know, lived in the browser, and then this allows it to kind of break out of the browser, and that's all it is. Like, it's, you know, suddenly JavaScript has access to your file system and can do a lot more. But so the first thing, and what I want to do today is I want this going on your guys' computers. So this is going to be a workshop as opposed to a lecture, and rather than me get up to the point where I show you some whiz-bang awesomeness and you go, that's pretty neat, I would rather you go home with a simple example on your laptop that you can break apart and hopefully apply in a project that you're at. I remember when I kind of first started, I was like, oh, what, Grunt, like, okay, well, let's get a starter kit or something, and then they all confused me. And then I was like, okay, fine, and I like wiped the slate clean, and I was like, okay, I want you to run like one shell script, and then I was like, okay, cool, Grunt compiles Compass, we're good, and then build it up from there. Because you don't want stuff like this to be a black box. So it can be really cool though, because the commands can get committed to a Git repo. So one of the projects I'm on, like, for me, it's not a black box. Like, you know, I went in there and like I understand each gear, but the rest of my team is a black box to them. So you know, you can set up all sorts of like Compass compiling and, you know, things that like Micah just talked about, and other people on your team don't have to reinvent that. Remember, try, don't repeat yourself. Same thing with the team too. Like, you know, if one person goes in there and figures it out, then it doesn't need to be refigured out by other people on the team. Also, since these commands, you know, are just in a text file, they get committed to the repo, and every developer on the project is doing the same things, which is super duper important. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get into it. And the very first thing that we got to have is Node.js has got to be installed on your computer. So if you do not have Node.js on your computer right now, nodejs.org, please, and hit install.
How can you check to see if you have it installed?
Do npm-v. So npm is Node Package Manager.
Just have to tweet out some links, but apparently I'm too late.
What's that?
I'm too late to tweet out some links.
Install Node.
All right, hang on there.
Yeah.
You can't get Node.js.
Yeah.
Probably,
and
my help.
Yeah, and also, I believe if you have Homebrew, that should just be able to take care of what.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Homebrew is awesome.
You have Homebrew, get Homebrew.
Yeah.
Another conversation.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna be focused here. If you're gonna be talking about Grunt, we could be here until like 10:30. Okay. So, is there anybody who wants to follow along who doesn't have Node installed? All right. Awesome. So the next thing is that you've got to have a global Grunt CLI. So what we want to do is all right.
I should do -G.
This makes more sense. Like shorthand is after you learn longhand. So yes, you could do I-G. That doesn't make sense. So the thing is that, you know, that --global just is like, hey, I just want it on my system everywhere I go. So these are the two requirements that you got to have before, and then after that, there's quicker ways to get a lot of things going. So I've got us a little repo, and so you could just hit github.com/evanlovely, and then it should be my most recent change. So we've got student dash sandbox dash dash grunt because I'm a BEM nut and I even name it like that.
And what happens if you get something saying that you need to run it as a
Sudo, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes for that.
Yeah, like what you basically, in a nut, I can help you afterwards, but you basically need to go run like chown your name home directory dot npm, or you basically have to roll in there and just like own the whole directory. Chown it. What's that?
It's because npm just installed as the root sudo to be
Yeah. Yeah. Might have used sudo when it was installed. Okay, so this sandbox, we've got it at a couple commit stages. So let's go ahead and roll back to when it was here. There we go. All right, so there's student sandbox and student sandbox dash dash grunt. So this just gives us a couple things to play around with. And I want you to be able to have this as kind of a resource, but like I mentioned, I also want us to kind of start from the very beginning. And where do all beginnings start? A blank terminal window. With much larger fonts. Thank you, my guy. All right. Here, let's do it huge. Let's do it huge. Why not? All right. So let's see here. Thanks. Sure, why not? All right. So the command that starts it all, npm init. If you want to start any node project whatsoever, npm init. So if you are using Grunt, or if you decide to jump over to the other side of the fence and do Gulp, they all run on Node.js. So before I dive into this, I want to talk about Gulp real quick. So Grunt and Gulp do the same thing in a different way. So the mantra of Gulp is code over configuration. And what that basically means is that it is a more maintainable code at a loss of options. So if you take a look at some Gulp code, it makes a lot more sense. And when you kind of come back to it, you're just like, oh yeah, that thing that does this, then this, then this. But this is at the sacrifice of configuration. So with Grunt, you can get exactly what you want. You know, you can tweak every option in every configuration object. Also, as it stands of this moment, the Grunt ecosystem has 4,397 plugins, where the Gulp ecosystem has 1,380 plugins. Grunt's been going longer. It's got more community support, and I think that is a damn good reason for choosing the Grunt side of the fence.
But Gulp is plenty solid. Use it.
Yeah.
Just make sure it has the modules that you need to work.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's even some ridiculous stuff like a plugin called Gulp Grunt that uses Gulp to run Grunt, because it's all Node.js, which is all JavaScript as well. And that's an important thing to remember, is that anything that Node can do, Grunt can run. And underneath it all, it's all just JavaScript. So anyway, npm init. So what I'd suggest doing is like that the student sandbox that I have is go ahead and clone it in one directory, and then over in another directory, let's go ahead and run npm init, and I want to have you guys build it up. But you'll be able to say like you missed some of the code to throw in, you'll be able to roll over to that repo and see it going. So, all right, npm init. So, like it says, it's just going to walk you through creating a package.json file, which is your map to the node world. So, first it's asking us name, temp, sounds good. Version 1.0, why not? Description, this rocks. Entry point, don't worry about that. Test command, don't worry about that. Git repo, it would figure it out if it was in one. And keywords, also, don't need to do it. A lot of stuff you can just hit enter right through. So it's basically showing us that it's going to create a JSON file that looks like this. And yes, it's totally okay. So
Sidebars are crazy hard to see.
what are you talking about? Your eyes are going out. All right. So, all right, there's our beautiful package.json. Pretty boring. So, what kind of happens as we go along is we need to be able to go ahead and install stuff that gets saved into here. So, let's see here. Let's go ahead and head on over to what I've got made, and then head back in time. So, it's all right. All right, super basic Grunt file. So now, if you're on that repo and you head to the commits tab, you'll be able to see that the long history of this project spans 4 commits. So if you go to that second one, you can find the Grunt file in a state like this. So we're good to go. All right, so the next thing is being able to kind of get some of the dependencies in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go, all right, so I was about to run this, but it's like, how do I know that's called Grunt shell? And that's probably because I've done it enough, but that's not a good enough answer for you guys. So say I was at gruntjs.com/plugins, and later after you're done with this is a great spot to be cruising through to be like, what can Grunt do for me? And this plugin area, it's sorted by how many people use it. So you can see that pretty much the most popular Grunt plugin is one contrib-watch, which basically watches files and then runs stuff. Done all the time, so much so that it's the popular one. If you see the contrib-, that's done by the core Grunt team. So anyway, so I want to run some shell commands, and so I type in here and find the shell package. Click on it. It's giving me some examples, how to use it. Sounds good. And then that's the command that I've got in my terminal right now. It tells you how to do it. So this --save dev, so I've got --save, and I'll talk about the difference between them, but there's not too much of a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and run that, and it's going to go ahead and download that, and it saved it. So what saving means really is that if we head back to package.json, we can see that there's now a dependencies object with a reference to grunt-shell and the version that it pulled down. We can also see that now I've got a node modules folder, which contains inside it grunt shell. And the thing is that node modules is always get ignored. So if somebody else were to clone this, they wouldn't pull down. You don't have to commit like the modular contributed plugin. But what happens is in package.json is a single line of text that says this plugin at this version. And so check this out. I can go ahead and just go ahead and toast my whole node modules folder, and then simply running npm install will download every plugin that is inside package.json and pull it down. So this is pretty awesome because committing code that's somewhere else on the internet is totally not needed.
Here's a bad idea.
Yeah, waste of space, waste of time. It's just asking for all sorts of issues. So, all right. So, what does that let us do?
Does anyone need to get caught up or kind of just following along? Okay.
If someone would be so kind as that gentleman walked in just a little late, if someone could point him towards the Git repo, I think that someone close to him, that would be really helpful.
I PDX Sass
Yeah.
Twitter account if you want to check that out too.
All right. So inside the config, now we just use the plugin's name, and we give it any arbitrary target. I'll explain some of this stuff in just a second. So what we're going to go ahead and do, so what's happening here is that, let's go ahead and do this. All right, got some advanced stuff going on here.
Listing files.
Yeah. Fatal, they're unable to. Oh, so first thing I did was with global, I installed grunt-CLI, but I didn't install Grunt. So we got to do that too. So npm install grunt, save it. All right.
That's nice non-dependency of the shell. Kind of shocking.
But the thing is for your whole package, you want the version locked down. So say if we lock down at like 0.4 right now, and then 0.5 comes out where it's able to do some of the streaming stuff that Gulp can do, you want to make sure those are like totally separate.
True.
So and then actually, so we can get into Grunt is a dev dependency of Grunt shell, but not a dependency.
Okay.
And so we'll get into that in just a second. So.
You added the grunt tasks.
Oh yes, totally. Have to load it, right? We're starting like so early. Like this stuff is always get like solved.
When do you use? Do you actually manually add the grunt tasks?
God, no.
Use that out of there?
No, not at all.
So there's a plugin. If you use Grunt enough, every time that you add a new Grunt plugin, basically have to put a line in there saying import this plugin, import that plugin, import this plugin. And it gets a little tedious because usually,
no one does that.
If you've got the plugin installed, you want to use it. So there is a plugin that, what it does is it automatically installs all the plugins you have in your node modules folder.
Yeah, so
that's why I'm not used to often having to put those in.
So he's talking about this line.
Can you put that on the big screen? That's definitely not readable there.
All right, so go Alfred. So normally, don't put this in. Actually, wait, that's my clipboard. Sorry. Oh no, even in their example, they're using it. That's hilarious. Yeah, let's go ahead and skip over how people used to do slow dumb things and get right to the smart way of doing things. So what we're going to want to do is just install this other plugin, and it is.
So load Grunt tasks. Thank you, step.
Awesome.
That was easy.
All done. So, all right. So what did that do, real quick? Like, let's. I don't want to just go right over it. So, in a nutshell, what has to happen in the Grunt file is you have to say load the plugin, load the Grunt shell plugin. But that gets really old. So say if you have 10 plugins, you have like 10 lines that say load it, load it, load it. And actually, you're being redundant because you already added it to package.json. So that -- save puts it in package.json. So there's this plugin called load grunt tasks that just heads to your package.json file, and it looks at all your dependencies, and then it loads them. All right, yeah. So we just got to get that in there, and then so now let's go ahead and take a look back at it. So what we've got here is right here is the name of the plugin, and we have test and test2, and obviously that is just some arbitrarily named stuff. I mean, these are called targets. I could call it ASDF, and that's totally going to work. So basically, when you run Grunt, and then you do the name of the plugin, and then its target. So I got ASDF, and what that does is that ran my command, ls, just list. There it is, right there, listing our directory. So also, So we got our grunt, this one. Oh yes, yeah. I was like, what in God's name? All right. So there we go. So this format is super important because basically it is how you reference the multiple targets of tasks. So, and like I was mentioning here, like this is a really, really powerful one because, you know, in your command, I mean, who doesn't want to automate what is the listing of the home directory? I mean, I use that 3,000 times a day. Okay, no, seriously, but so like you can put in anything here, like
You can run a git command. You can.
yeah, so you could be like cd project and compass compile, or maybe just compass compile. In fact, actually, this is what my compass compile looks like. You ever notice that like when people are watching your screen, you try to type faster? It's dumb. So, all right. So, literally, that's what my compass compile looks like. So, this is a pretty simple one. And like I mentioned earlier, like I knew that when people watch this and like, oh, this is it'd be way easier to just run compass watch. Yeah. But of course, this scales. So, all right, let's go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. And let's head over to a little sandbox. Am I at the most recent? Yeah. All right. So actually, let's go one before that. Okay, I'll get this text bigger, I promise. Okay, so by this point we've done npm installs name of plugin -- save several times, and we've got a lot more stuff in here. So, for example, we've got our package dependencies all hanging out here. So you'll see that there's dev dependencies and dependencies. Don't worry about that. And I know some of you still will, so I'll talk about it. But what it is that if you do -- save, it goes into the dependencies object. If you go -- save - dev, it goes into the dev dependencies. So all that means is like if it's a plugin and you're going to work on the plugin, then you need the dev dependencies. But if you're going to use the plugin, you just need the dependencies. So if you're working on the plugin, you'll install the dependencies and the dev dependencies. But if you're just using it, you'll just use the dependencies. Grunt shell's dev dependencies grunt, but not dependencies. Anyway, what I just do is -- save because then everyone gets it. So anyway, yeah. So we've got several things in here, and kind of the pieces that I want to show off tonight is we've got some JS hinting, we've got some SCSS linting, we've got the shell, and we got the watch. So let's go ahead and see what it looks like when several of them are together. So what usually happens here is, let me get over to this guy. All right, so
You know how the white can do that dark sky.
is it?
Yeah.
I could do that, yeah. Goodbye, Darkula. Oh. Oh, of course, then the code is still.
Yeah.
Oh, it just looks
Impossible
wrong.
better than it is before.
Oh God. Okay. All right. Can you guys see in the back?
Maybe a little
Man.
bigger.
This? Yeah. All right.
All this code's in your repo as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Get it in. Grab the. Yeah. Exactly. Like that's get a magnifying glass. That's the best one. All right. So. Almost everywhere on the internet tells you how to set up your config in my opinion, a kind of wrong way. And that is by using grunt config init, and you should use grunt config merge. So I'll show why in a second. So basically what happens is we're in our grunt file, and it kicks off this, and then grunt config init. and then it's this big object, and we saw like, you know, the shell and the JS hint. So what is happening here is that like we've got the watch plugin, and so what's happening here is we have the watch plugin and the styles target, and the styles target says when files here change, run these tasks. Then right underneath it, it says, hey, watch the JS, and when these files change these tasks. So what's happening here is we're grouping by function, and I think you should group by feature. So for an example, is like right now the watch function that watches things and then does things is all hanging out together in the watch object, and then it kicks off tasks that are up here. So this is a really, really simple example, but I could crack open a 500-line grunt file for you, and you're all over the place. You're like, okay, let's go down to, you know, line 300 to look at the watch. Okay, that kicks off this task up to line 150. Oh, and then that does down to line 450, and then it's abstraction. It is, you know, you have to keep a lot of things in your head, and so everybody is grouping things by function, and I think you should group things by feature. And it's a really simple thing. This isn't even any extra plugins. This is using what's it core and grunt. But basically, so what we can do right now instead is we can hopefully see right here, hope you guys can see, is that I've got some JavaScript tasks and then the watch that kicks it off. And then up above, I've got some SCSS tasks and the watch that kicks it off. So I'm able to declare my watch in multiple times. Grunt.config.init doesn't let you declare watch multiple times. So anyway, so that's why we initialize an empty config. And then we start merging in. And that's it right there. So like
merge around each one of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So grunt.config.merge is around here, and then grunt.config.merge is around here.
I'll be doing that tomorrow.
Yeah, no, like seriously, like I came across this and
know that.
not many do, and I'm just like, I want to stand on top of the mountain and shout, and be like, you're doing it all wrong, you're really close.
For example, I've got a style guide that's split up in 4 different parts, and there's like a 3-step process to make the style guide. So every time I have to go to like 3 different sections in this big, huge grunt file and make changes to each of those 3 sections for each of the 4 parts, and like it'd be a lot easier to have one part that talks about everything, like the entire flow.
Grouped by feature.
Grouped by feature, instead of all my watches together. Okay, now I need to jump down here, all my style guides together, and over here, and all my templating together, and it just makes it a mess to have to jump around on one. Really want to look at like one particular feature.
Well, and the watch is a great one because almost every chunk of tasks has a watch that it can kick off. But the shell one is super powerful too. Like, I mean, it's shell commands.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like anything, you can do freaking anything with it. Like seriously, I think even just a grunt setup that was watches and shell commands, super powerful. You know, it's awesome. So yeah, use.
Can you then split all those merges in different files?
Yep. That is this commit right here. You kind of got ahead.
Yeah, I know.
So actually, yeah. Well, I feel like I got ahead a little bit because I went from shells right into that. But anyway, so you'll see in instructions around they do grunt config in it, and it's all in there. But just use grunt config merge. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this a little more. So you know, I've got my shell plugin and my styles compile target. So the word styles compile again can be anything, as in you saw ASDF, and then command, and you know what I'm doing here is basically like it's JavaScript. You know, this was going to be a string, but I just plussed it to a variable and threw that in. You can see that I'm using that SCSS config root multiple times here. And yeah, it's only // which basically means here. So actually cd dot slash doesn't do anything. But since it's a variable, we could be able to override that. And if you just basically move it to other places. So, you know, a reminder that it is all just JavaScript. Like you could totally set a variable to a string and use it. It's just JavaScript. So anyway, we've got a couple things going on here. So, yep, style compile. We have an SCSS lint, so it's going to check our lint, or I'm sorry, our SCSS files for errors, and not like errors, like 'cause that's kind of like more like CSS linting, you know, like you forgot a semicolon. But SCSS lint is pretty awesome. Like you can set it up to not let people nest more than 3 deep, or extend classes, or use IDs, and yeah. And then the config is a file. And so what does that mean if it's a file? So it's like, this is awesome. So you can basically have all these rules right here, and if it's a file, that means that it's committable, and that means it's shareable, and hell, that even means it's pull requestable. So like, it is now. And that means, you know, like if Mike and I were on a project together and I disagreed with his rules, you know, submit a pull request and let's beef it out in the comments, and eventually he would admit that I'm right, and then he would merge it in, and then all 20 developers on our team are held to the same standards. And it's not even just about the same standards, but it's also about those same commands. You know, like if you're running these shell commands, like I'm showing some really simple ones, but they can get way complicated. And screw documentation, you know, like, because, yeah, so people can be running.
Do this step and that step and this and this and this. It's like, no, run one command.
Yeah, and then run that command, and once you learn it, like 2 weeks later, I'm going to make an improvement, and I'm going to update it, and you didn't even know that your process got improved. So, all right, so then we've got this, so back to this watch. All right, so we got, if you ran grunt shell : styles compile, it would compile this. If you ran grunt SCSS lint styles, it would then lint them. So this watch is watching SCSS files, and then it has an array of tasks that it runs in order. And it's those 2 previous ones right there. So let's go ahead and get some of that going. So let's see. Actually, I just got a terminal in here. I can just use this guy. So, I can't make that one bigger.
Yes, it is. Yeah, just check the Twitter feed.
All right, so you can see that I had ran grunt watch styles, and it ran it, and it was waiting. Then it saw that my style file changed, and it compiled it, and then immediately afterwards it linted it. And so it's telling me that I'm using the wrong kind of comments. I should probably use single quote strings instead of double quote ones. Color literals like white should only be used in a variable. ID selector, avoid using ID selector. So like and it's giving this feedback to me each time. So you know,
So
next
you have warnings, and then you also have errors, right?
Yeah, that's the W's and the E's. And actually, if you roll into scss-lint.yaml, you can see that they have a default state of warning or error, and then there's a way to override it. Where are you at? You're in here somewhere. Yeah, check the docs. But anyway, you can basically say, like, you know, if someone uses an ID, it will fail the compile if you'd like. So there's also a real fun thing that if you use a plugin called Grunt Newer, and then so you could basically run this command like this, where I'm running SCSS_lint:_styles, and if I prefix it with newer, what it'll do is it will only run it on the files that are newer. So what this basically means is, like, if you have like 200 Sass files and you didn't have this, every compile you would get yelled at for everything that's wrong across 200 files. And besides being annoying, you're not going to go fix that. It's too much overwhelm. So with the newer, what we have is like the file you just changed, you hear about the errors for just that. And it's a pretty sweet plugin because you just have to prefix your tasks with that. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. So we've got some JS hinting. So we've got the name of our plugin, and then we've got the name of our target. So I want to talk about the options real quick. So you could have multiple targets, and all right, so JS hint could run, it from multiple areas. Obviously, the source for both of these are the same, so you just cut and paste them. But these options apply to all of them. Now, if I wanted to override it on a target-by-target basis, then I could just go ahead and throw in a target-level option. So I think that for most of the time, though, especially when you're starting out, just the options right at the top are the way to go, because then they apply to every target. So again, we've got our task JS hint JS, and it's going to cruise through the source files and JS hint them and let us know what's wrong. So if I wanted to run that, this is why I'm pounding it in. Is basically it's like this format, grunt, name of plugin, : target, and that's how you run stuff. So there we go.
And also, if you leave the target off, it just runs all targets.
You got it. Yep. So say if you had like 3 shell commands and you just ran grunt shell, it would run them from top to bottom in order. So, all right. So we can see that we were able to run grunt JS hint : JS, and we've got SCSS_lint styles. I recommend always kind of using the task and the target, because if you run it on the whole plugin, it might work then, but then later when you add one, you inadvertently are running it, and this allows you to be a little more explicit. So, we've got this grunt SCSS_lint styles and this grunt JS hint JS, and they're pretty similar, right? It's check my stuff, make sure that it's not broken. So you can go ahead and register tasks to run concurrently. So I'm doing grunt register task validate, and then I have an array, and it's cruising through them. So able to basically do, and so that did both. That checked both the styles and the JavaScript. So as you probably saw up here, we have a watch for our JS hinting as well. And as Micah alluded to, we can go ahead and, instead of run grunt watch : JS and also grunt watch : styles, we can just run grunt watch and fire all the grunt watches. So we got our grunt watch. It's just waiting, and then we're going to go ahead and save some styles. You can see it's cruising in the background, and change some script, and it ran. So that's kind of, this is a real consistent pattern. So we've got the thing to do, compass compile, JS hint, SCSS_lint, and then we have the trigger, which is the watch. If this file changes, then do that. And this pattern is like, this is all you need to know to go and improve all sorts of workflows. And it's totally where you should start. And there's a lot of places that you can go afterwards. You know, like you could like watch images and then run image minification on them. And you're going to set it up doing this exact same thing. It's basically creating a watch task that points towards a folder of images, and then when any of them changes, you run this plugin. And we would, you know, we go fishing for plugins. So, you know, off to the Grunt plugins page, and then let's go image. Oh, look at that, image minification. So we'd hit this page, and then we would do npm install grunt contrib image min, save dev, and then it's in there. And then we can kind of scroll down, and they show an example of how to use it. And that's kind of the basic stuff there. Like, and so you'd also create a watch, you know, watch images that would then fire this off. So, you know, you could, you know, run, you know, the one grunt command, and it's minifying your images, it's compiling your Sass, it's checking to make sure that you didn't like nest super deep. And then also it's checking your JavaScript to make sure that you've got all your quotes and semicolons and all sorts of fun stuff in the right places. And what you set up for you will be consistent for the members across your team. And maybe if you work by yourself, what you set up now will be, say you know, bounce between projects, and you have to come back to it like 3 months later, and you're like, okay, what commands did I have to run again? So it can save yourself and a lot of other people a lot of time. So let's take a look a little further. So we've got like this grunt registered tasks. So let's see how some stuff is done right here. So, you know, we've got some shorthands as well. Like I've got grunt registered task compile, and that just runs shell : styles compile. So I could run grunt and then this word, or grunt and then this word, and it's the exact same. And you know, it's definitely less stuff to type, but ultimately I could come in here and add some more stuff. So maybe I'm building a Jekyll site as well, and later I want to add Jekyll build, and I've already trained other people to use grunt compile, and little do they know now they're compiling other stuff. So it's also kind of nice to be able to have some consistency. So grunt register task default will then run validate, which runs these two, and then compile, which runs this, and then watch, which kicks off all watches. So I could either type you know, grunt and then the name of that task, which is default, but you know, it's default for a reason, so you actually don't even need to type grunt default. You just type grunt. And this is usually what I like a lot of, is that if you don't know anything about this project, I can be like, oh, okay, well, like clone the repo, and then you run npm install, right, because we didn't commit any of the node modules, just pulls down the dependencies, and then I'm like, run grunt. Done. You know, like, so this is gonna compile all of our styles. It's going to check all of our stuff, and then it's going to kick off a watch right afterwards. And this is awesome because just run grunt and get to work, and you can worry about a lot of the other complicated stuff. You know, what you're trying to do with your job after that. So there's kind of there's kind of the base stuff. And as I promised Micah, I would show the multi-file. So,
okay, straight fire, nice.
All right.
Dig it.
And then there we go. So we've just basically got that in there. And so you can be able to break these out across files, and instead, if you want to shorten up your grunt file. So It's pretty much just those little trees, that little grunt config merge, just pulled in another file, and we pass in grunt, so that way it's smart and does its thing. You can actually pass in configuration as well, which is kind of nifty, but outside the scope of this. So there we go. Like, I wouldn't worry about this last little part. This is more just kind of like nifty trivia. It's like if you're getting over like 150 lines in your grunt file, it's probably time to do this. I had like a 500 line grunt file before I started going crazy, and then needed to do this. And it helps out a lot to be able to have them in a separate file.
So you can bust out your registered tasks as well.
Yeah, you could. I've actually played around with, like, I want the plugins themselves, like styles.js, to like register themselves in the build process, but I'm also afraid of like abstraction and confusing other developers.
Because I've got some tasks that have a good chunk of JavaScript in them.
Oh wait, yeah, you can register in there.
Well, so these registered tasks.
Yeah. So like, say I wanted to just do this in here, and then I just put this like right here.
Okay, and then it brings it in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then there can be like full functions as well. So.
Yeah, I've got some pretty crazy registered tasks that do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I should probably just make a node module out of this, but.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. So let's see here. Let me show another little fun example with that.
Okay, we need the.
I think we're good. No, I think it's anonymized enough. So where would that be? It would be in. Yeah. So you can just like write a function at the top, just a plain old JavaScript function, and then use that as a value. Yeah. Because it's all.
That's the awesome thing. It's just all JavaScript.
Yeah. So anyway, so I hope this was helpful, and I'd like to spend does anybody have any specific questions, like image minification, or can it do this, or favorite plugins, or I'd also happily take the time to just come, we could go ahead and break, or not break, but stop, and then come around to your laptops and help anybody through weird errors or specific scenarios. Like I said, I think that starting kind of from the ground up and building and having a strong foundation of being able to like create shell commands that run and then create watches that kick those off, then you're good to go, right? Then like get Grunt to run, Compass compile and Jekyll build or whatever, even just Compass compile. Like I know that with Compass Watch, I already have a watch and a build built in, and it might seem like it's kind of silly to kind of go over this, but I think we've all have heard about this Grunt thing, and there's a lot of good reasons behind doing this stuff. So I even if it seems a little overkill, I would still suggest replacing a Compass Watch with a really simple Grunt setup that's watching your Compass files or your Sass files, and then running a Compass compile.
At least you can add to it later.
Oh
add
yeah.
Dependency to it later or something like that.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of goodies that are out there. Like what are some of like the most popular ones that people are using? So it looks like there's a Sprite one.
There's Sprite one. There's also an icon font generator.
Yeah.
So you can throw a folder of SVGs in, and it compiles an icon font for you.
Yep.
And then you can throw a template at it, and it spits out the Sass markup.
Yep.
For that. So every single time we build, it creates a new icon font, basically. So you throw a new SVG in, and you just call its name, and produce a new icon font. Rather than grab the file, upload the icon moon, hit a bunch of buttons, and hope you don't screw it up, download it. Just that whole process that's obnoxious.
This is not intended as a divisive question, but we've been using Gulp probably over a year now. It's baked into our build system.
Great. Gulp is awesome.
And so, but I'm always curious about what the differences are. I don't have any experience with Grunt. But you mentioned sort of the thing that stuck in my head was that you felt Grunt had greater configurability. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit and what kinds of cases have you found?
So I actually would love to start a project with Gulp just so I could answer this question really well because I haven't used gulp in a project. And so, yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I think in a nutshell, a lot of it is there's a lot of configuration, and it's kind of like Grunt will basically do all these one things well, and it's up to you to put the machine together a little bit, and that's awesome, and it sucks, because you've got to put the machine together, but you got to put the machine together.
I think that's going to be totally true, whatever build system you go with.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's Grunt or Gulp or Broccoli or what have you. And I mean, our system, and I didn't really have anything in writing it, but it's evolved so far from just a Gulp file with a long script in it. We've got multiple files, and actually a casual user would be presented up front with actually a configuration file on Gulps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean grunts. But the only places where I've really run into problems actually have to do with streams when I want to do something on a stream, and what was it? I was trying to add documentation somehow, and so I was trying to parse a file that had already been parsed in the stream, and so you actually have to create a new stream if you want to do certain type of tasks.
You should, well, again, having used gulp, but perhaps save it to a variable and then send it back on its original path, and then you should be able to grab that. I think
you're absolutely right. The time that I was doing it, I think it was more of a side effect of how we set everything up.
Yeah. It's like if anybody here has ever set this to a variable, var that equals this, and then anyway. So what?
That's kind of funny. Do you
What?
use that, or do you use like dollars?
Self or that.
Oh, that's funny. I've never used that.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Because it's past tense.
That is equal to this.
Yeah. So what he's talking about is the streams. So here's a little glimpse at some gulp syntax. And the thing that is so if you used bash pipes, it will be pretty familiar. And the thing is in bash, you can run a command and then it can output it on the terminal and you can see it. Or you can use the pipe character, that guy. And well, I mean, so for example, so ls would list the directory, but instead of showing it to you, you pipe it into another command, and pb copy, anything piped into it copies. So this would be how you would copy a list of everything in your directory. So what happens here is that gulp will do stuff and then pass the output out to the next thing. And the thing that's cool about this is that it doesn't write files, where Grunt will, one of the solutions for handling something like this is say you wanted to compile Sass and then minify it, you would create the .css on the disk drive, and then you would create the .css.min. And the thing is that you just left RAM for the hard drive, and even if it's an SSD, disk operations are slow. And so this keeps everything in memory, and that's one of the reasons why Gulp's a little bit better. But Grunt 0.5, the next one, is supposed to be able to do this. And again, there's literally 4 times as many plugins for Grunt as there is in Gulp, so it's pretty strong.
They're both great platforms.
If you're using,
moving along, they're both rocking.
Yeah, if you're using one, don't look too fondly over the fence. You're good to go. But if you're using some piece together bash script that does everything, then it's probably time to get onto this, But anyway, what this does is the stop pipe. It cruises through everything, and it's just steps in the process. So it's going to grab a bunch of JavaScript files. It's going to concatenate them all together. It is going to send them to the destination and rename it and uglify it, which just basically means remove comments and white space and new lines and all sorts of stuff to make it as small as possible, and then send it there. So that's a look at a little bit of Gulp syntax. But again, it's JavaScript and it's also Node.js. So there's a lot of similarities. So. All right. Any other questions at all?
I had set up a register task to export a couple of database tables.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to grab those export files and concatenate them.
Mm-hmm.
And but what happened was this concatenation kicked off before the last export had taken place.
Oh, asynchronous.
What's that?
So in Gulp, you're talking? In Gulp or Grunt?
Right.
Oh, wow. Grunt's usually.
Yeah. If you have it there, I will happily come over and take a look at it. And that's all right. So just a couple thoughts right off the top of my head is that it sounds like you obviously have got a task not completing before the next one starts. So you know how.
There's a watch task. Watch those new files and then kick off the concatenation.
That would be an idea to the daisy chain, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what
If the server takes a while and it's not something that just happens next.
Right.
Basically, if you're telling something else to do something,
Yeah.
then Grunt doesn't know if it's done or not.
Right.
So a watch task is probably your best bet there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so
kind of call back or
so
something.
kind of like this right here,
It's just JavaScript.
you-
like
So this is kind of like set up right here where we give a series of tasks a name. Would probably be like the way to do it is so like one would be to create the SQL dumps, and then the second one would be to concatenate the SQL dumps, and then be able to run them like right after each other. And you can also do this.
there you go.
So then now you've made an impromptu task, and it doesn't have to be a plugin, and it can do all sorts of stuff. So if you get into the Grunt docs, and then you can go ahead and like here's one right here. So grunt.file.copy. And so it's showing us this. So, you can just create this little grunt task, and then inside here, you can use a lot of like real base functionality that Grunt's got, and you just have to roll into the Grunt API docs to see these, but grunt.file.copy, write, read this, do that, and then again, it's all JavaScript as well. So
You can call functions from in there, or call tasks.
Yep.
That's what we're saying.
Yep.
So you can always, when something happens, and then that function will actually call the next task in the chain. So that's very nice to go call tasks from in there.
yeah, and then it's. One second. There's one of these that
Yeah, that's right.
no, not grunt task run, because no grunt task run will run the task,
Yeah.
but I believe there's another one in here that's like this task has ran, and then it returns a boolean. So that means that you could run something to be like wait until this thing has done, and if it has, then go. I haven't used it, so like I'm just kind of I remember reading it somewhere. So that would be another thing to look into. You can also set up like watches and events and triggers as well if you really want to get into the naughty stuff. But something tells me that you just need to do this setup where in this highlighted case SCSS lint is create database export, and then JS hint is concatenate them, because Grunt is synchronous and it waits for one task to finish before the next task kicks off. So, cool. Good luck. That's that. I mean, I believe I've also there's a I think there's like a WordPress deploy Grunt task that you're like grab the database and it will like SSH up to your server. It will dump and back up the database, pull it down, back up your database, and then import your database. And that's just one Grunt task. It's pretty cool. So yeah, all sorts of nifty stuff. Any other questions at all? I'll be hanging around here for a little bit if anyone wants to get into a little more. So if you want to stalk me or if you want to ask me grunt questions, hit me up on Twitter. That's how you can find me. Love to help out. So thanks so much, everybody, for coming and checking this out. And I hope it helps you in a project soon.
So I guess I can leave that on for now. So thanks for coming, everyone. There is probably kind of pizza out there, so feel free. We have some like aluminum foil. Let's call it. Looks like some saran wrap.
I just barely found the sticky notes. So.
Yeah, you did that, so I'll give you that.
We could wrap the pizza in sticky notes.
Wrap my sticky notes. So if you want to grab some pizza, feel free. A couple quick bits. Next month, it's going to be a pretty awesome month because we have Rachel Neighbors, who's right here, world-renowned speaker, just turned an age I won't actually say, but it was just her birthday. So you guys remember because of that. But she'll be speaking next month on CSS animation, and specifically, what's the title of it again?
Is this the one about the web animation API, or is this the one about usability?
It sounds like the set, probably the API.
State of the animation?
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah. So state of CSS animation as we speak. I've seen a lot of your tweets. You're grumbling about animation these days, and thought bubbles and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's going to be fun. She spoke last year and did some awesome animation demos. Looking forward to that as well. So that'll be next month. I believe same time, same place. There's a chance we might look at another location just because it's a little bit bigger and we've been invited just over in Jive, which is a little ways that direction. I haven't got confirmation on it yet, but I'll definitely, when it goes out, you'll have that information as exactly where it is. So, one thing we'd like to do is at least give an opportunity if there are companies here that are, people representing companies here that are hiring, to be able to announce those openings for anyone that's currently job seeking. Is there anyone?
I'm here for that. I know my company is hiring.
Okay.
So I work for Klein. We're a digital agency down.
I think I actually applied there at one point. I think I actually applied with you guys at one point.
So
Good spot.
we're looking for some developers, full stack, front end, back end.
Cool.
We are fine.com.
Fine. All right.
I work for a company called Advanza. We're a project event management company, and it's awesome rocky did get a team. We're looking for a project manager. One of the financials from and that project manager coming down.
Cool. Awesome. Yes.
State design, we've been looking in the past. This time we're actually looking for someone to our Boston front end team. So if you or anyone you know is looking for work in Boston, type cards and come see me.
Awesome. I assume on site then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, preferably.
Yes.
Work for thinkshop.com, just up the street. We work mostly with nonprofits, and we're looking for software engineers, either junior or senior software engineers. We call software engineers web developer.
So mostly PHP?
Mostly PHP, mostly Drupal, although some Jekyll.
Nice. Awesome. Anyone else? Bunch. Yeah, actually, this is you're sitting in a Drupal shop. You've been like, what are these graphs? I feel like are there ghost presents or something? Awesome. No, it's so much fun to see so many people hiring. It's a blast. Portland's a good place for that. So thanks for coming. We'll see you again next week. Feel free to stick around for a little bit, grab some pizza. There's probably a couple of beers left in the fridge, maybe. Yeah, just the small ones. Don't get the big ones. Don't get hot. But,
I'm just going to get my computer, but can you help me because
Sure.
I got an error. I'm very new to all of this stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Go grab it. Okay.